cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind. Well, her hair is as black as an alleyway.
Good morning, Mikey. It's really wonderful. I woke up at 5 to do my morning meditation, and I had Lake Titicaca in my backyard. It was just a flood back there. I started thinking, so I'm sitting there, and I'm sort of watching Eric Paulson in the morning news, and lightning's flashing, and the water's getting a little deeper, and I started thinking, like, what if it was like the days of Noah, and Noah's neighbor's just sitting there having his morning coffee, and he kind of reading the Daily Stone, whatever it is that they pass around as news, and he says to his wife, baby, it's been raining for like a week now. Water's getting high out there. It's getting near the windows and stuff. Maybe we should. Nah, don't worry about it. Stop. It always stops. And he's reading, and next thing he knows, he looks out the window, and there goes Noah floating by with a ship full of animals. And he thinks that son of a gun didn't tell me nothing. His neighbor didn't even bring me. He didn't offer me on a ship full of animals. He took the animals. What's that if I was Noah's neighbor? It's the kind of thing that comes to me in the morning when I'm up after a meditation. Recurring theme of cats in my life, yes. You know it's a cat, but he left me. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
My bad.
User malfunction.
There we go. Now I should be working. That's kind of funny. That's all right. People like you. What I had said for the people who missed it was that people.
Well, because you were brilliant. You were saying some really funny stuff.
Yeah.
And
yeah. We'll tell them that. We'll tell them that.
It was from the heart. I was like, that was between laughter and tears. I didn't know which way to go.
Yeah. Let's tell them that. Let's tell them that for sure. Oh my goodness. A friend of mine woke me up this morning. Thank goodness, because I wasn't planning on being awake. Hey, look, my lights are on now.
You working last night?
But I woke up at like 3 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, so I watched WandaVision. A new episode. And, I'm looking on my thing, and I can't, So now we're in episode 6, and I'm still going, all right, something really has to happen soon, because this is starting to be too much of a slow burn.
Yeah, all my friends, my friend Luis Marquez up in Chicago is way into the Marvel world, and so he's been excited about it. He's still defending the show. Mm-hmm. He says it gets there eventually.
It's really taken its time.
That's been sort of like the thing. I read an article about that show. I haven't seen the show myself, but I read an article that said, have people forgotten how to watch TV? Because sometimes it takes time.
It does. And look,
I'm talking all week, the whole scrolling through life thing that's going on.
And I'm a big fan of but at this point, the reveals are so slow that, it's kind of like, I almost feel like it didn't need to have 9 episodes. And I think part of the problem is that they're half-hour episodes. They kind of decided to go with the half-hour sitcom-y thing. And they're really sticking with the sitcom-y thing, even now into episode 6. So,
that concept.
Yeah. But of course, there's stuff going on in the background, and you just like, all right, this is great. I get it. It's meta, but can we get to what's going on in the background? Because it's been 6 weeks.
I love that you throw terms like meta in there. You're so now.
I'm so now. That's right, man. I'm trying to be, trying to stay woke. That whatever that is,
I've spent many nights trying to stay woke. Often when I was driving to a gig.
Last night I had no choice. I was awake, so I watched Wanda. So I guess
got something they watch when they're up late.
It was cold. I've decided that I don't think I like the cold. I thought I did.
Oh no, there's no question. I don't like the cold.
Yeah, no.
Anyone out that if you're out there, Luis, if you're in Chicago, John Carrera, if you're in Florida, you all know. I would show up for gigs in Chicago in early December when they're all still wearing light jackets and sweaters. I'd be in an overcoat with a scarf and thing, and they'd be like, "You want to take that off?" And I'm going to wear it in the club, man. It's yeah, too, as far as I'm concerned.
I was the same way in Nashville as far as like I'm outside and my friends are, wearing a light jacket. I've got like 2 jackets on and a flannel. I'm like, "You guys ready?"
Oh yeah, I got laughed at a lot, but I didn't care. I was bundled.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's like
I want to be the funniest warm person in this room.
you'd be like Bernie in that little that thing with the mittens and the
And again, all he was an old man dressing for cold weather.
right.
He's from what, New Hampshire or whatever, or Vermont, whatever. They dress like they wear mittens and they bundle up because it gets cold. It's cold up there.
Right. Not to mention somebody made him the mittens. Free mittens. I have plenty of free mittens. I wear my free mittens.
I had styling clothes when I was touring with Cowboy Mouth, and I would step out of New York and look styling in that cold weather. But you're only out in it for a few minutes till you hop into a restaurant.
Right.
When you're in a place like New Hampshire or something, you're walking blocks to get to the restaurant. Those stylish clothes are for bupkis.
Right.
You want a jacket that makes you look like the cream puff marshmallow man.
Right.
You want to disappear.
And you don't care anymore. That's a beautiful thing about getting older, right? You don't care about the big jacket.
Well, I didn't care when I was young.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't.
Put me in a freaking blanket if it's cold enough. I have in New York City in the 80s when everybody else was looking cool, and somebody for Christmas had given me this jacket that basically was a giant sleeping bag with arms stuck in it.
Uh-huh.
It had no shape to it. It looked like a sleeping bag that has armholes, and I didn't care because that thing went down to my ankles. And I was walking through the streets of New York wrapped in a sleeping bag, and it was warm as could be. It didn't look good, and I didn't look even remotely cool, but I was warm.
And we're back. Philip Guzman says, and we're back. Robert Schooley says, morning, Mike, morning, Paul. Barbara Smith Davis says, I love that you thought about Noah, and he forgot to invite you on the ark. Well,
It was rainy, and I was thinking, all I ever heard about was animals. I grew up Catholic. I heard about animals on the ship, and I'm thinking, no, I had to have neighbors. Now, if I was sitting there with my coffee and this flood had been going on, I got to move to the second floor. I'm on my second floor having my coffee. This is a drag. Hey, there goes Noah in a boat. It's all animals. Down the street, man.
Yeah, I mean, if that big boat was going down the street, you're probably not just sitting there. And you're in the attic. You're
by that time you're in the attic because it's a pretty big boat. Yeah.
You're peeking out the attic, going, "Is that Noah? What's going on with all those animals?" And I forgot to bring a hammer with me.
Oh, it's Paul. Do you have any pets? No.
Right.
He doesn't even answer. He just gives you a look.
Right. I love it. You got any pets? No. Because you can't come, but maybe that would be the trick, right? If you were bringing your pets, you could be like, all right, you were a guest. Your pet could have +1.
Old Mardi Gras costume right quick. Right. I'd jump into an old costume that had a tail on it and start woofing or something. Noah, woof. Woof, Noah, woof. Happy Mardi Gras, Noah.
Speaking of which, right, this is Friday before Mardi Gras, right?
And I was doing good with this COVID thing. Really, I made it through the holidays because every once in a while in life, it's not bad to have a holiday without jam-packed family functions and just being at peace. But Mardi Gras is such a communal time, and it really did. The house floats are beautiful. I went and took a walk and saw some last week, and we managed to keep that joyful spirit alive. The families out with their kids taking pictures in front of house floats and stuff. But yesterday was Muses, and my friend Slick and Michelle riding Muses, and I might have gotten a shoe, and I had to post a shoe Michelle had given me from a few years ago as a good memory and all that. But, New Orleans finds joy, and there's people with these house floats are great. And then I saw on WWL, Eric Paulson this morning had Miss Linda with her Yucca Mane, and she's invented now a Yucca Mary, a Bloody Mary with her Yucca Mane spices.
Nice.
And I was like, now it's on. Now it's Mardi Gras.
Right.
I could have a whole parade in my house with some Yucca Mary. I don't even need no floats. They'll be all in my mind.
I know. I saw some pictures. I saw a headline today. There were some pictures of course, everybody kind of lost their minds and went to the bars and from Mardi Gras. And so when they shut them down, apparently there were all these pictures and stuff because I figured there was something going on. I think we talked about it earlier in the week how she was like, yeah, come on down. It's cool, whatever. Just follow the rules. And of course, there were
That was a mistake. We talked about that last show.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, there was some pictures, right?
Can't take back now, unfortunately.
No,
because there have been people invited, and now they're trying to cancel trips, and the bars are closed, and it's kind of a mess. But then that's really first world problems. The fact that you have to cancel a trip to go get really drunk.
Right.
You know what I mean, that's. I mean, I'm going to miss Mardi Gras as much as anybody. I'm born and raised here. I got pictures of me in costume since I was a little boy. Love Mardi Gras. Going to miss it. Stay safe. Mask up. See you next year.
See you next year. Yeah, that's kind of where we are. What you gonna do? I mean, although what was it? I think I saw something yesterday where they're thinking that they would have enough vaccinations for everybody by the summer, which surprised the heck out of me. And I honestly didn't think that they would. Now I know the logistics of actually getting them out, but apparently they're supposed to have enough of them by the summer.
History's unfolding.
Yes.
I'll just keep watching it do so.
Yeah,
I'm getting better at piano. So this COVID thing, I'm sort of living the Bill Murray thing in Groundhog Day, where one of the things he does is he gets better at piano because it's the same day over and over again.
right.
I bought a piano at an estate sale. I also picked one up for like $300 at an estate sale, and started out real just simple. Couple lessons from Bill Malchow on how to keep it simple and keep your hands close together, and then. Now I've had it for 10 months, and I'm playing jazz standards in the American Songbook, and I'm like, this is fun.
I've heard you play, and I was actually surprised. I figured you'd, because when we were younger, both of us we know the chords, we can pick them out and stuff, and if we have to play some pads, take us 5 minutes, but we could work up a little thing with a bunch of 3-note things, right? I mean, but I came over, and I think I was setting something up for when we were doing the filming of the stories, as a camera thing. And anyway, you just actually playing piano. And I was, at the time though, you didn't have the left hand worked out. You were just doing.
Left hand has joined the party. I'm happy to say.
Look at that. Yeah. At that point, you were just kind of doing the single notes, but you had all kind of stuff going on. And I'm thinking, wow, look at him. This is great. I think I told you, I said, it's time to go Sinatra, full Sinatra now.
Yeah, well, I'm old enough, and it's a nice place. You get to sit down, which is nice.
That's right. Piano players get to sit down.
I've never considered that before, but piano players get to sit down. Like now, Andre was always a smart kid.
Sits down at drums too, right?
He sits down at drums and piano, his two favorite instruments. And he's a great guitar player.
Uh-huh.
But he doesn't focus on that. Right. He focuses on the instruments where he can sit down.
Well, even slide guitar, right? You got to sit to play slide guitar.
Even slide guitar, Yes, it's a nice tribute to his father, but yet another instrument where he can sit down.
Yeah.
This is a kid that's always thinking, Sandra. Always thinking.
That's too funny. I was going to say, I talked to Rob Savoy yesterday, and he was on his way down to, he was doing a thing for NCIS himself. He was standing in a crowd. But
yeah, he's been an extra on some episodes. He's, Rob works for Jazz Fest, and of course, as we all love Jazz Fest so much, and they had to cut back on staff because they canceled last year's, and they're doing their best to put something together this fall. And so he's working part-time, but he's picking up some extra work, and one of that is doing some extra stuff on NCIS, and he's loving it because Rob played the Tin Man when he was in grade school or high school.
No kidding.
He's got theater in him.
Well, he's also perfectly built, right? I mean, it was like one of those things where, you're in school and there's always reasons that you get chosen to do certain things. It's like, oh, Rob will fit in the Tin Man suit. We just wrap Rob in some duct tape and he'll be thin. He's too thin to be a human. So, Still, yes, still too thin to be a human.
Yeah, he's been a cop. He's been a coroner's person. He's got a strong face for it.
Yes, he does. And
character. You want that behind you. He says, I support you.
What would be even funnier is if you were there doing your thing and then you saw him and you could be, it would be like one of those things where you could like Bryan Cranston him a little bit. Here, kid.
Again, Mikey, it's a mystery to me why the producers haven't called Detective Dillard back in.
I know.
When you spelt the presence, the gravitas I brought to the role, clearly I'd been a detective on the force who was responsible. And a good connection for Pride, I would be. And I felt like that was a real spark again between us, and that with Rob being on the show, that would even deepen the electricity on the screen. So I'm surprised they haven't called again. I did tell Scott Bakula that I was on acid and zapped into an episode of Quantum Leap and had dialogue with him. And one of the reasons they never called back. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that story.
Probably not, but you know.
But I mean, it's 25 years ago. We all did things 25 years ago that we can't be held. I'm sure he did something 25 years ago he couldn't be held accountable for.
I'm glad you're saying that because there is something about being a kid and screwing up. I feel like sometimes we've forgotten that this day and age. But
I mean, first of all, I think making mistakes when you're young is unavoidable. There's no such thing as a perfect life,
no.
And if there is, I wouldn't have wanted to live it.
Good morning, Freddie. How you doing today, buddy? Just Freddie jumped in on. He's one of our regular viewers, Mr. Freddie Blue. Well, he's setting up.
The few proud.
Huh?
The few the proud.
The few the proud. That's right. That's right. You guys, thanks for sticking with us. We're having a lot of fun doing this, and the few the proud. I have a problem this morning, though. I didn't really share this. By the way, today's an Allie day because she's got games this weekend.
Nice.
Yep, she's on her last few games. I'm wearing my Rhodes t-shirt and the whole nine. But I don't have enough cream today, which was...
that's sad for your coffee.
It was very sad. Yeah, I mean, we got one good cup out of it, and...
when I was a kid, my mom only drank tea. That's all she drank for whatever reason. So I grew up drinking tea. The only time I had coffee was when somebody died. We lived in the Irish Channel, and the wake would be at Lights Egan's funeral home. It was this old stucco building on the corner of Magazine just off of Jackson Avenue. And it's 2-story. And the second story in the back was a little kitchen where people would sort of gather, have a little snack while the wake was going on downstairs. And as a little kid, it was a great place to hear the adult gossip because kids should be seen and not heard. And so I was in a corner, and they were all drinking coffee. So you got served a little cup of, not like this, but like one of the little cups of coffee.
Right.
And it was mostly just cream and sugar, which the last time I thought the coffee tasted like was cream and sugar because that's what they give me. It was mostly that with a little bit of coffee. But that's where I learned how to drink coffee and chicory, was at the Lights Egan's funeral home, listening in on the old folks' gossip. So still to this day, when I have a little cream with my coffee,
right,
it's not right if it doesn't have that.
Agreed. And I'm addicted to sweet things, I guess, because it's funny because I like even the coffee flavored ice cream, but that's mostly milk and sugar with a little touch of coffee.
Like milk and sugar. There's two great things that go great together.
That's right. Are you a chicory guy or just?
I do like chicory. Yeah, I'm a chicory guy. I mean, I grew up in New Orleans, and that's what coffee tastes like to us.
Right. And you know where the history of that stuff comes from with the chicory.
Yeah, World War II and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to stretch it out, trying to ration out coffee.
Yeah, I thought it was even before that. That was like Revolutionary War type stuff. But
Randy Newman has a great song about because his mom was from New Orleans, and when his father went to fight in World War II, she left him here with her. She was here with her family, and he went off to the war, and so she raised him in New Orleans for a while. He writes this beautiful song about the Roman candy man and climbing the trees in Audubon Park and all this stuff. And somewhere in the song, his dad comes home from World War II and he tells everybody we won the war. And everybody started celebrating. Everybody started hollering because New Orleans finally won the war. We beat those damn Yankees. Dad gets so upset that we're so backwards that he moves him back to California.
Of course. My daughter moved from LA to Humboldt, which apparently I don't think I've ever been to Humboldt. Have you been there?
Yeah. It's rural. It's way more rural.
Yes. It's a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comparatively. So, she starts telling me about, they moved up there because of COVID. She'd been in LA. LA got kind of scary during this COVID thing. And so they moved up there and she's like, I really love it up here, but I know I won't be staying here forever. I'm a city girl. I don't like the country, and I'm just thinking them Green Acre and up on in Humboldt County.
My wife Allison has a twin, Aline, and her husband Eric Williams is one of the greatest guys. He's like everything he's a great dad, great husband, great business partner, great friend. He's my age. He's 61. He's like a little boy when he gets in nature, whether it's the beach or the woods. And Thanksgiving before last, they had rented cabins in the woods somewhere on the North Shore. To me, it was way out in the woods. It was probably Mandeville for all I know, but it was woods. And we get some directions, and we don't take the right direction. So we don't drive right to our little cabin. We drive through what looks like, and we later found out is a foot trail with branches scraping the car. And we finally make it to their house, and I'm like, I got to find the cabin. I can't drive through that again. So we walk over, and there they are, and they're laughing at us that we didn't follow the directions. Their daughter's there, and they're there. So he says, I'll walk you back to your car, and I'll take you back here to your cabin. I said, okay, great. So he's taking me through a path through the woods, and he's just like beating his chest and smiling like a 10-year-old and going, I love nature. And I don't want to say anything because I'm like walking, looking at my shoes. I'm like, God, I wore Perry Ellis, man. I got Perry Ellis shoes are getting all muddy. I got this really nice Perry Ellis coat on with leaves and splashing dirt on it. And there's nothing about nature stuff that's turning me on.
Don't you know how much this stuff costs? My God, I'm never going to get this mess out of there. Is that poop? I think that's poop.
He was so happy. I think I might have even said something like, I go to, great lengths to see nature from behind glass, really. Climate control and a glass of Pinot Noir. Right. I love nature at that point.
Right. You're one of those guys who can put the screen up in your house where you can...
I got a huge window. I see nature every day. I have nothing but picture windows in my place. Look, it's awesome. Giant picture windows.
Yeah, it is gorgeous over there.
Climate controlled. It's awesome.
Yes, it is awesome.
I made it a mission, though. I'm going to try and get Eric to teach me the joy of being in nature, the 10-year-old joy he feels and exhibits when he's in nature. I'm going to try and see if I, as a city boy, can't soak that up, because I didn't have a lawn when I was a kid. I had bricks in the front yard, and we had cement in the backyard with more bricks. And mowing the grass was you get a butter knife out, and you go and you dig in between the bricks to get the algae or whatever grass might have been. It was usually algae, but grass growing out of there, And that was mowing the lawn.
That's a cheap lawnmower you got there. So
yeah, it was something to get the kids out of the house too. My mom had you had 11 kids.
Right.
You little suckers, get out of here and go get the grass from between the bricks. So there's 3 of us out there with butter knives cutting grass in between the bricks.
Right.
Quiet for a little while.
Right. Just a little bit of quiet. I remember being young too, and your parents just would throw you out of the house. I mean, it'd be August, hot, just a horrible day, and your mom would look at you at 9 in the morning and go, "Well, I hope you have plans today because out."
Yep. You, and really, that's what we didn't even think about staying home until later in life when like HBO came along and that kind of stuff. They gave you a reason to stay home and watch good TV in the middle of the day. And when we were young, you hopped on your bike first thing in the morning if it was the weekend, and you'd freaking disappear. You didn't tell your mom where you were going. You're going off to jump ditches or play on the boats at the river or whatever the heck. And you came home when it was dark because you had to. That was the rule.
And mom didn't care what you were doing all day. You could have been jumping bridges, and it was where you were, right? That's the only thing she ever cared about is like where you were doing it. You do whatever.
No, I was 10 or 11. She didn't care where I was.
Right.
she was so over raising kids by the time she got to me. She was like, if you're bleeding somewhere, give me a call.
Right. Beyond that, I think you got this.
I'm good. Let me know when you're coming home. I'll be around.
Right. I have 3 kids. My youngest kid right now is 21, and I have a bunch of friends who are just having kids. And it's always fun there's a lot more pressure socially on parents these days of what is acceptable to how to treat kids, and and it's always funny to watch them, the first kid, especially if they have a second kid, and watching things change, and just knowing just the difference between the first and the second. If you only have one kid these days, that kid's gonna be neurotic. You got to have 2 or 3 kids, or else your kid's gonna be neurotic because you have to loosen up. It's more about you loosening up, and once you have more than one kid, you start to loosen up a little bit because
I avoided that dilemma by not having children at all.
Probably a good idea.
It's very calming in my old age to not have those dilemmas you just listed. I couldn't be happier for you.
I actually enjoy it now that we put the work in, and now that we're a little bit older and we can enjoy them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw this new personality.
Very, if I was doing a session at your studio before the flood down in Miro, I remember, if Kim brought out lunch, that was it. the session was on hold for a second while you had a plate lunch, and your little girl climbed on your lap and gave you hugs and kisses and stole your food. And it was a beautiful atmosphere. I remember when we talked about Herman Ernest Jr., and he was such a regular at your house that when he came out to play for me and she brought out the plate, he just looked at Kim and smiled and said, "Where's mine?" She went, "I'll be right back."
Right.
And Allie was playing on his lap just like she did yours. You know, it's just one big family atmosphere. It was awesome.
Yeah, she loved Herman, and Herman had
His generosity. I remember, man, I hired him for that session, and you know, I didn't have a lot of money back then. I was making the records with all my own money and making them when I could away from Cowboy Mouth, and but I really wanted him on the song, you know, and he came out, and it was a New Orleans kind of groove that I had written, but I really didn't know how to swing a New Orleans groove because I'd been in Cowboy Mouth, I'd been in a rock band, and he goes, "Baby, let me just tell you something. I'm gonna play this, which is gonna sound like a little R&B thing. And then I'm gonna ask the bass player to do this. It's gonna sound like a little, you know, like a little straight ahead thing. So it don't even sound like I don't even go what I'm doing. And then you just play it on the upstroke." And I listened, I was like, "That sounds like reggae." He says, "New Orleans music is a little bit of calypso, it's a little bit of rock and roll, and it's a little bit of nothing in between it. So sometimes you just gotta leave that nothing." So he laid the track down. It was just beautiful. It was No Bothering You. And then he says, "Man, I hear some percussion on this. You mind if I play some percussion?" I said, "Man, I got to be honest with you. I literally only have enough money to pay you for, you know, what you just did." He smiled. He said, "You ain't feeling me. You write real songs, real lyrics. I ain't heard real lyrics in a long time. I want to play on a couple of songs." I said, "Man, that's awful generous, but I'm serious. I'm broke." And he goes, "And I'm serious. You ain't listening to me. I want a couple of songs. I like your stuff." And that beautiful smiley as he'd give you, and I was just honored. And I remember he laid down this percussion track, and he was doing claves, and I'm used to like pop claves, Beatles, and those kind of where it's sort of a rhythm you play over and over again. And I noticed that he wasn't playing the rhythm over and over again. I started thinking, well, maybe he needs another pass. And at the end of it, he went, "Okay, that's good, Mikey. Now give me," and he gave you another 2 percussion tracks with 2 other kinds of percussion instruments, you know, and it all sounded random to me, and it didn't sound like it went together. And I just thought, well, he's a nice fella, but when he leaves, I'll just tell Mikey to sort of mix that out, you know.
Right.
And he looked at you and he smiled. He goes, "Give it back to me like popcorn, popping out everywhere." And he turned on the track, and just like he said, man, the percussion was coming at me like popcorn, like it was a symphony of percussion, not just somebody laying down a repetitive track of clave or something. It was
Right.
It's hearing things inside the music as a percussionist that I'd never heard any other percussionist give me in my songs. It was lovely.
Right. Right.
And proceeded to do that for a few tracks.
Now, that particular song, I remember him coming by the house maybe a few days after that, and I was working on some background vocals. I think Mark Mullins had come and sing it.
Mark Mullins sang it, yeah, and played trombone.
And so I was doing some background harmonies or whatever, and Herman wants to hear what we got going on, and he's listening to it. He goes, "I want to sing some harmonies." And so that's how he wound up on that tune. He just
Nice.
threw up the microphone, and it's great. I mean, that particular song, you listen for it, and you just hear his personality is all over that, just in the backgrounds, you know.
Great. That's so great.
Freaking Herman.
I didn't even know. Wow. Ah, yeah, you see, there you are.
I know.
Herman again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did House of Blues All Stars with him for a long time, and that's when we became such good friends. Every Monday night he'd be at House of Blues, and
I remember.
yeah,
I remember those.
For years, like 5-6 years, and
when House of Blues was doing original music.
yes, when House of Blues was a whole different thing, right? Back in the 90s.
It was back in the 90s. It was Cowboy Mouth and the Neville Brothers were neck and neck for the most sellout shows. It was an exciting time, because they were my heroes.
That's right. They used to put the little marks, right?
You know, like Jazz Fest for me when I was young, and for years, well into my adulthood, it was about seeing it all, absorbing it all, but it was always about ending with the Neville Brothers.
Right.
It was always, whatever I was doing, it was like a rush. Whoever I was with, I was like, I got to go be there when the sun's setting on the Neville Brothers,
right?
When the family's on stage, when all the kids are up, when Aaron's voice soars like an angel above that crowd and says it's okay, everything's okay for one more year, you know?
Right.
That's when his voice has always been the most healing voice for me, you know? I miss those religious moments of Jazz Fest. Right. I mean, of course, now Shorty more than lives up to the tradition. He's a fantastic entertainer. He's got the spirit of the city in his blood. He's one of the nicest young men I ever worked with. You know, I was doing John Boutet's Good Neighbor record, and we were doing Foot of Canal Street. and James and Shorty were going to be the horn section, and they were going to lay a couple tracks each. Well, they had schedules were messed up, so James Andrews came in first, and he and John know each other forever. And they get to the bridge, and John's saying, "I see you there at the foot of Canal." And he says to James, "James, give it a little," and he shoves his hips out like, "." And so James is like, "I got you, John." And he's playing it. Every time he's thrusting his hips at John, and they're cracking each other up, and he plays the part. And that Shorty comes, and he goes to play, and John goes, "Shorty, when it gets to that middle part, I want you to give me a little," and he thrusts his hips out, and Shorty just looks down and goes, "Oh, John, behave." He's such a sweet young man. And John, of course, just cackled and thrust his hips again. And, I'll forget. Great track.
Chris Joseph says good morning, and so does Marlene Taravella.
Good morning to all.
Yes, good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us again, as we said.
I just did a book reading with, well, I didn't do it. Chris did a book reading of his book, Life is a Ride, that is his journey through cancer. And it was really lovely to hear all the people chiming in on the comments of what the book had meant to them, or the ones that were hopeful of what it could bring to their lives. So glad you tuned in, Chris. Thanks, buddy.
Yes, Chris. And I got your book. I don't think I messaged you that I had gotten your book, and thank you so much for that. I broke it a little bit open last weekend, and then I'm going to open it up again this weekend. And I've been nonstop down the rabbit hole of production, virtual production, regular production, putting on our shows at Chikiwawa, learning how to do all this stuff. And now that we're going to have enough vaccinations by the summer, who knows, man? Maybe we'll be back to work before you even know it. I'm starting to feel hopeful again.
I'm starting to feel hopeful again too, man. Like I had, 2 years of not being able to sing, and
right.
Speaking was even a chore. So now doing this with you has been lovely, because I'm actually being conversational with a friend, which I haven't been able to do. I've been like hiding from my friends since 2019, hoping that people wouldn't ask me to go see them play, or wouldn't ask me to go to dinner or have drinks, because I didn't know if my voice was going to work. And it was just mortifying for me. I was so ashamed of myself, even though it's a medical condition and I shouldn't have been feeling shame. And I went through therapy to make sure I didn't, and all the blah, blah, blah. I still did. And so it's great to talk again. It's great I was singing for 2 hours before I got on with you, sitting at the piano playing and singing.
That's awesome.
Lovely. I thought music wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore. So yeah, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I remember, I think I was trying to reach out to you some in maybe 2018, 2019, just telling you my plans to come down here, and I was moving back, and I was all excited. And I remember first it was kind of hard to reach you, right? But every once in a while I'd catch you at the right time, and you'd actually get on, and you were, you tried not to bring me down, but it was obvious that you were having some struggles,
It was hard. Like I didn't see many friends, but it was hard when I did let friends come by who loved me, like my friend Sonia and her wife Connie came to visit, and they're very good. Connie's a social worker, and they're very good at trying to mask their feelings. But when they heard me speak, Sonia teared up. She thought I would never speak or sing again, and so it was hard to see the pain in my friends' eyes who loved me when they heard what had become of my voice. So it wasn't just embarrassing. It was awkward, and it took a long time. It took a lot of work, and I'm still working. I work every day to try and get past it.
Well, the upside with you and my conversations is that they were long distance, so you didn't have to see what was on my face.
That's right. Well, I imagine I wasn't very encouraging as far as coming back, just because I had lost the ability to help my friends anymore, because I couldn't show up for gigs, and I couldn't take part in gigs, and even going to see Alex or my friends Carmela Rapazzo and Mark, they always would ask me to get up and sing, and I'd like be sitting way, way back in the audience, hoping that they would see me, so I could enjoy seeing my friends without them asking me to sing, because I didn't know if the voice was going to work or whatever. Anyway.
Well, Eddie Ecker, I'm sorry to change the subject, but he just texted me asking if he's chopped liver. He says that you make him the Pete Best in your life story. I'm not sure Eddie's name came up today, but
no, we haven't mentioned him today. We have mentioned him in other shows, and I do love Eddie's drumming. And I tell my wife Allison pretty much every day that before I had Google, I had Eddie Ecker that I could ask everything of because he's one of the smartest people I ever met and will give you his opinion at the drop of a hat. A fine drummer, a fine bass player, a fine guitarist, a fine songwriter, a loving husband, and a devoted father.
He's actually a
There's
good father.
there's not enough one could say about Eddie Ecker. And one of the finest yats who ever yatted.
Oh my gosh, he's a proud Yat. I mean, he could be from the Bronx. He's so proud of a Yat. You know, he's just got it. He's got like blood all the way back to
One
New
of my
York.
favorite Eddie Ecker yat stories is about his dad. He said, "My father taught me how to talk people down just by me asking him if I could have money to buy something. I'd say, 'Hey, Dad, can I have $40?' He'd say, $30? What do you need $20 for?" He'd have me talk down before he said no.
So that's a classic Eddie Ecker story there, right?
Yes.
Talk to your mother. She might have 50 cents.
That sounds like a Mike Mayu answer.
Yeah, no. I think he's in the middle of making another record right now. He's been calling me. He's very excited. He's got a bunch of mixing techniques he's always calling about, you know.
Well, much like yourself, my friend, he's always trying to learn more.
Yes, he is.
You know, and I admire that about him and you. It's not enough to do music. Just like Shamar Allen, you know, it wasn't enough to be a musician. He wanted to know how to make it all happen.
Right.
And you know, you're sponges, and it's great, and it's fun to watch the maturation. I've never been interested
Right.
in that side. I've always wanted to work with engineers and producers that I like and trust, because I understood from an early time that engineering and producing are entirely different art forms than actually making music, and they take just as much time
Right.
to learn and be great at. You know, like Mark Bingham or you or some of my favorite producers really spend time, like hours and hours and hours at the board, remixing and mixing and tweaking and getting it right. And the love of it, the actual love of that kind of devotion to that tediousness is its own art form. I devoted my life to trying to write the best songs I could. I took shortcuts around being a guitar player. I took shortcuts around being a piano player.
Right.
I did it so I could learn how to write the songs I was hearing in my head. It's what I wanted to be most, and that's how I spent my time. And I didn't want to take any time away from that to learn how to make records. I like my songs, and I like the records that the engineers and producers made for me.
I totally get it, man. Same thing. I mean, I took shortcuts in playing guitar. Like when I was 15 years old, I wanted to be able to play whatever I wanted to play on guitar. By the time I was 18, I just wanted to write good songs. And you helped me with that. Like by the time I was 23, I think you'd listen. Like I always seem to have a knack for putting together nice, cool little guitar riffs and melodies. And we were on the road at some point, and I played something for you, and you're like, Mike, you're just so close. It's like, you know, but lyrically, he's like, you had told me, you know, you need to just write things that you understand that are true for you. You know, I mean, just write from a place of understanding. Don't try to make up, you know, because I kind of took that. I would look at John Lennon and Mick Jagger songs and go, what are they really saying? They're talking about tangerine trees and stuff. What is this? You know, so just trying to be clever with different little things, but it doesn't really turn into a song. And you were the one who, and I'll be honest, like after our little conversations, 2 weeks after that, I wrote two of the songs that our band plays, Ground, and another one, Can't Resist, just off of that advice. And friends of mine that
Thank you.
love those songs. You know, they think they were great songs, and it was all about.
It's still the advice I give people. It's like, I think I told you when Shamar brought his first song to me that he had written for a rock album. It was bad. It's a real bad habit. And he played it for me, and I said, "Oh, I'm so happy for you. You found somebody you're going to bring home to mom and marry and just settle down now." And he went, "What you talking about, Uncle Paul?" I said, "Those are pretty flowery lyrics, my friend. Those are the lyrics of a man in love, getting ready to settle down and bring a girl home to his mama." He goes, "Man, what you talking about? You know I ain't like that." I said, "I know. I've heard you talk about women to your friends when he was like 24 years old, a long time ago."
He's a young
I
man.
heard you talk women with your friend. You don't talk like that. I said, and your friends, if they heard you talking like this, would call bullshit on you. So the lyrics should be something you should say that you would say to your friends.
Right.
That's all lyrics are. It's just a conversation with a friend,
Right.
you know, and it should sound real.
All right.
And
It's got to be true to you, or else people can see right through it, you know, and
people can definitely, I think that audience members can feel authenticity. I really do. I think
Absolutely.
that's one of the things they're coming to the show looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because life requires us to hide so much of who we are, just to navigate your job, your social engagements, your whatevers. So you have to put on certain masks to navigate a lot of your life. And part of the reason they go see art, be it on a wall or be it in a nightclub, is because they're looking for honesty and authenticity. And you don't have to make a big show of it. You could just be it.
Right.
And they feel it in their hearts and see it with their souls, because that's the real place that it lives, you know?
And if you
At
start
least
looking closely at the music that you enjoy, the music that moves you, it's been a long time since it was about some guitar riff or something like that. It's been what they're saying to me that's moved me for a very long time. You know.
You know, it's funny. Alex McMurray, I probably have more respect for him as a songwriter and singer and player than I have for just about anybody I've ever worked with, just because he's so amazingly chameleon-like and versatile. And we almost never disagree. Our only disagreement was one night coming home from a Wright Brothers gig where he was trying to encourage me to play solos. He goes, you know, you've been taking lessons from Rankin for a while. You get pretty good with solos. You should think about adding guitar solos to your solo sets when I'm not there. I was like, you know, I say that stuff for guys like you and Craig and people that dig solos. And he goes, yeah, but you know, you're getting good at it, and I think your audience would enjoy it, and I think you should do it. And I was like, yeah, it's not really something I really want to add to my set. And he goes, but it would be a whole new addition. You know, he was really sort of perplexed. And I was like, look, I grew up with people like John Lennon's guitar and Dylan's guitar and Springsteen's guitar. They were just strumming so they could sing the song.
Right.
So I went to see Chris Christopherson, and he did 2.5 minute versions of all my favorite Chris Christopherson songs at the House of Blues with no solos, and it was the best I could have imagined it being. I said nothing against George, because I love your solos, and they move you, and because they move you, they move the audience. And so, yeah, you keep doing them. And he kind of got a little frustrated with me to the point where we had to let it drop, because he really like sort of wasn't feeling it, because he loves the solos. But I just, to be honest, I'm okay without him. You know.
And to be fair, I think you and I both, you know, when you don't, when that's not your goal, it's to speak with the guitar. You know what I mean? To really speak with the guitar.
Even if you can, like Rankin taught me how to speak. John Rankin taught me how to speak with my guitar, so I know how to do that now. And occasionally I do, but I still want it to be a short conversation.
Right, right. Because you're in the simple melody, you're in the vocal melodies, right? So the melodies that come to you are the simpler melodies and stuff like that, you know. So when you're playing solos,
I like the melody and the lyrics of
Right.
songs. You know, that's what I've always been drawn to. Like Sinatra's Wee Small Hours records, just not a lot of solos on that record. It's mostly just songs, and they're short, 2.5 minutes, and it's one of the great records that, you know, a singer ever made. So
we love 2.5 minute songs.
as Hokey Hickle, the original bass player of Dash Rip Rock, used to say, please don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
That's right. Hokey Hickle. Love that. He was definitely had a lot to do with he was in Walking How to Make People Like You and Influence People. Remember that book from, you know, when we were kids, whatever, how to influence people and make them like you, whatever.
Yeah.
He was a walking version of that, because my God, everybody loved Hokey. And he could say whatever he wanted to. He could just get away with everything. It was a pretty amazing human being.
And, you know, my one Hokey story, because I didn't know him that well. You know, he was in Dash, and I was living in New York back when they were really rolling with Fred and Bill and Hokey. And we played a gig together, Cowboy Mouth's first gig for the Gulf Coast Preservation benefit at Tipitina's. And I think it was the first time I had smoked a joint before going on stage. And as they were going up after their set and we were coming down, I was saying to Fred, hey, dude, I think I just got high right before we went on. Look, he looks at me and goes, ooh.
That's awesome. Ooh. That's great. So, you know, Adam Richard, is it Richard?
Yes.
Adam Richard says, good morning, Paul and Mike. Your passion for the work you do is inspiring. Thanks for sharing. Thank you for commenting, Adam. We always like to keep track of it. And then Kevin got in there, and he wishes us both a happy Mardi Gras. Wondering if we're going to be here on Lundi Gras. Yes, we will. I'm assuming, right? We're here in Lundi Gras morning.
Yes, we're doing a special Lundi Gras show. Not really.
Eric DeSanto says, don't sell yourself short, Paul. You're a great picker. Sorry, I had to share that one real quick.
Eric's a wonderful blues player from originally from the Pennsylvania area, I believe, but now very wisely resided in Baton Rouge, where it rarely ever gets 6 feet of snow.
Yes, very smart man. Very smart man. So you were telling me about these plans we have for Lundi Gras that I don't know about. Is that what was? We have big
No,
plans.
they were in my mind.
Gotcha.
But if we wanted to, we
Uh-huh.
could probably dig through and find some like Lunday Gras clips from years past.
I think we should.
With both Cowboy Mouth and Alone or whatever. Maybe we'll find some fun stuff out there. I don't know.
I like the idea of the music being part of a Lundi Gras show. You know, doing some needle drops during the thing sounds nice.
Doing some needle drops.
Yeah.
See, you got all the terminology. You're so hip now. I'm glad you're holding this old man's hand through this process, Mikey, so we can have the show.
Well, if you told this to my daughter, she'd be like, "My dad hip? What? Come on."
I bet kids never think their parents were ever hip, right?
No. Although I will say that the one year that I kind of gained some points is my daughter started going to Bonnaroo religiously when she was about 14 years old, because we lived a half an hour from Bonnaroo, and I was usually doing something. At the time, I think I was doing something for schools or whatever, so she could come with me, and then Dad was working, so she could run off and do her thing all day and see her music and whatever. But by the time I was 16, she was 16, I had a big account with Bonnaroo, and I was able to get her and her friend VIP tickets, and they were backstage the whole day, and that was when Daddy was cool.
That's when Daddy was very cool.
Yeah, she met some artists that she was really into, and it was really it was one of my and actually I think it was her after the year she graduated. So she was 18, and we'd gone to California, and I had same thing. I had a big account there, so she met a couple of the artists that she really liked back there backstage, and she flew to California. And
it's a double-edged sword, because when Cowboy Mouth was happening, my nieces and nephews were all around the same age. I didn't have any kids of my own, but I had 29 nieces and nephews, and I had several of them that were in college, and drinking age. So they were wanting to get in free and get their friends in free. And if they had a girl or a boy they were trying to impress, get backstage and meet the band. Right. And suddenly I was like the hip uncle,
Yes.
And it was very cool. And now, that's all a long time ago.
Right.
And I'm with my wife's family, like the very first Thanksgiving we were together like 3 years ago. And we had known each other when we were 19, my wife and I, but we got back together 36 years later. And so I'm with her family, and a Bare Naked Ladies song comes on. And her brother-in-law, Eric, says, "Oh, I love the Bare Naked Ladies." And then one of his kids said, "Oh, I saw him in concert here." And another one goes, "I saw him in concert there." And I start to tell a story about being on tour with the Bare Naked Ladies and something that happened in the, food line, and that led to a shower, a fight, or whatever. And I thought, there's no way I can tell my road stories without sounding like a pompous ass. Because she sounded like, this just was life.
Right.
When I was on the road, I learned, like, when I got home for Thanksgiving, everybody would be like, anything happen interesting on the road? Not really. We played some chess, and the shows were good. You just couldn't say that you'd gone skiing here and did this, because you started sounding like you were bragging, which you weren't. It was just the stuff that was happening.
Right.
So now I keep all my stories to myself, and bands' names come up, and I go.
I do know what you mean, though. I mean, it's funny how people will be like, yeah, share that, and then you start telling some of them, and you realize, just from, like you're talking about, in the room with somebody, that they're like, yeah, nice for you. Yeah.
Nice for you. Yeah.
It sounds like you got a tough life here, buddy. I'm happy for you.
You don't really mean it that way. It's actually, you're trying to tell a funny story is all.
Right.
But
yeah, nice for you.
It does kind of give you an appreciation, like, especially as I've gotten older, the feeling of playing in front of 50,000 people. Mariella sang, and Sonia and I have talked about it, and Griff and I have talked about it. It's an amazing feeling to stand on stage playing rock and roll in front of 50,000 people. It's like something you can't describe, and it's something that once you've shared it with somebody, when I stand on stage with Mary and Sonia or with Griff, I feel that connection again.
Right.
So it was a great adventure. I'm glad that I took it.
And Cowboy Mouth wasn't like a shoegazer band. I mean, you got up there, y'all had 50,000 people. Y'all were moving 50,000 people.
We were trying our best to, that's
right,
for sure.
Right. And most of the time you guys were, most nights you did.
This was in the early days when we really were trying to do explosive shows,
right. Bands at a certain point, I remember you guys had a couple of really high stream opening gigs we were on some of the tours. We'd get 10, 12 dates. Man, that's how it works, right? You get 10 dates and you join a tour for a little run, and then you're off and doing your own thing.
Right.
Anyway, I remember we'd done that for a couple years, and then the last year, none of them came up. And it's like, wow, we're not really doing any of those big opening shows. And of course, we tell ourselves, well, you know, they don't pay as well, so we're doing this on it. But the truth of the matter is that those bands were like, no,
Mhm.
not
And they're
them.
some friends, you know.
Right.
To their credit, Hootie never did that to us, and the Bare Naked Ladies never did that to us. No matter how big they were, and they could have had anybody opening for them, and they were under a lot of pressure to get other bands to open for them because people open favors business-wise.
Right.
Both those bands would always give us opening gigs. You know, they were good guys. They remembered that they had opened for us on the way up,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave us every chance to open for them. So there's some guys that would, and there's some guys that wouldn't. You know.
Eddie just texted me, who is on that Bare Naked Ladies tour? Me. That's who. So
Wow, he really is having an Eddie day.
he's having an Eddie day.
You know, we'll just have to do an entire show dedicated to Eddie Ecker's contributions to our lives musically, emotionally, and
so.
existentially,
I
really.
think so.
We're going to have to cover the Eddiness of our usness for one whole hour just to satisfy.
I'm not sure that would be enough. I think we might have to call him after in a three-way call.
We may have to start a new show.
Right.
How much do I love Eddie? Then we'll have an unlimited supply of guests just popping in.
Talking about Eddie.
Story testimonials to Eddie Ecker.
What do you think, Eddie? Does that sound about right for So Chicago Lou says, Paul, a guitar solo, it would take time away from his storytelling, with a nice little smiley face. Marlene jumped on again and said, our kids will never be as cool as we are. And then Philip likes hearing our stories. Thank you, Philip. We enjoy our stories too. At least we do, and you.
Well, you know, I figure, like, really, that's what I posted on my Facebook page this morning. Do you miss having a cup of coffee with a friend? Because I do. And that's why we started this.
Right.
It's meant to be nothing more than a couple of friends having coffee and sharing stories of what's been and hopefully what will be again.
Absolutely. And that's why we kind of love you guys commenting and joining the conversation with us, because you definitely lead us into different places. It makes it so that Paul and I don't really have to plan things, because you guys help us decide what the heck we're going to talk about. So we thank you.
I like we don't plan. Like the first couple of shows, Mikey wanted to plan.
Right.
And he's like, let's meet up and talk topics. I'm like, no, just surprise me with whatever you want to talk about. I'm really best extraneously. I'm working tangentially. That's how I write songs. You know, John Rankin once said that I write songs like a jazz player improvises a solo.
Right.
Whatever comes to me in the moment is what I roll with.
Right. I was telling a friend of mine, I think it was Freddie I was talking to yesterday, and he had asked about the topics that we choose and whatever. I'm like, yeah, we don't really do topics. And I said, I can tell. I said, by about the third show, I'd called Paul up and said, I got some ideas for some topics. And Paul goes, yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I said, I knew what that meant immediately. Like, okay, well, if I can get it in, we'll see if we talk about it. But it was just kind of funny to me that you were just like, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Topics.
Well, that to me was the best thing about the Cowboy Mouse shows in the early days.
Yes.
Never had a set list.
Right.
From the time we started, I got on stage and I would just start playing guitar to one of the songs, and then the band would fall in behind me. And I was totally reading the energy of the crowd. Every once in a while, I remember turning around to Fred and going, okay, surprise me on this one. And he would look at me and go, you motherfucker. Because it meant he had to do something like climb the rafters or go out on the street with his long microphone.
So that was the code word, huh? Surprise me.
That was the surprised me meant he had to do something outrageous.
Right.
And we were really riding this electric energy that could last anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, some shows.
Right.
But it was really important for whatever reason to the record label, MCA, when we got signed to a major, that we cut it down to 90-minute set that was tailored toward the record. And I mean, we were still a fun band, but it wasn't that kind of chaotic, loose energy, that you create by being in the moment. And those were the most fun shows.
Well, you guys early on, you were like a revival almost too, because I mean, you had three really disparate. The labels try to homogenize things into like one flavor. I mean, it's just what they do. They're looking for something to sell.
Business does, like what's worked before.
Right.
The booking agent doesn't care that you're the greatest band in the world. He wants to know what size clubs you're playing and what part of the country, so he can say to other bands on his roster, I can fit them in here with you, and I can fit you in there with them. It's just a blueprint.
Right.
Same with the labels.
Right.
Like we signed with MCA, and Hootie and the Blowfish was really big. So they hired John Cougar's guitar player to produce us. And he tried to make Cowboy Mouth sound like a Hootie and the Blowfish record, which, as much as I love Hootie and the Blowfish, we're not them.
Right.
I don't have the depth of their sensitivity. We were about power and energy. And then the next record, Bare Naked Lady, Blues Traveler was big, Mercyland. So they tried to make us sound a little bit more slide guitar and Blues Traveler oriented, but we weren't a jam band,
Right.
and we didn't fit into that. And the next record had Everybody Loves Jill, and Bare Naked Ladies were big. We even literally stole a harmony that they had stolen from the Beatles on It's All Been Done, that they stole from another Beatles song. But we were that much trying to do that for the record company. And each time the record company would look at what was successful and go, okay, would you guys sound like that? Instead of taking this sort of ferocious live thing that we were and going, let's just put this ferocious live thing on, and maybe it'll be something like The Clash was.
Right. The thing is that it would have been something so different from what was happening at the time that they didn't want to take that chance. But yeah.
They wouldn't have known how to market it, really.
Yeah, they didn't know how to market it.
Of marketing things in place that we didn't fit into.
Right, right.
We were these wild, street urchin that were just rude and tearing things up and exploding people's souls.
Not to mention, I think one of the tricks to what you guys were doing were the fact that you had these very different ideas about songs and songwriting coming from these three different songwriters who all had very strong voices and very strong points of view on music. And somehow it all came together and worked. But I mean, the three of you guys together, it was really, people don't realize how different all you guys were as far as, what made the songs and
Yeah, no, our influences were very different, and what we tried to do with our own songs was very different. And the best thing about the early days was that we all made space for each other
Right.
to let work and happen, and the chemistry of that was great.
you were a revival. I tell you what, I was working for Dash Rip Rock, and my wife comes home one night, and she asked me if I had heard of Cowboy Mouth, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's Fred's band. I mean, 'cause I knew Fred and Dash Rip Rock. I'd come in right after Fred left, so I'm like, yeah, I'd made some demos even for them. I'm like, yeah, that's Fred's band. She's like, can you get a job for them? And I'm like, you like them, huh? She goes, oh my God. She goes, they're so amazing. Have you seen them? I'm like, I'll be honest, I haven't, because I've been, we're playing on the same dates that they're playing.
Right.
I think something was going on and you guys needed somebody to fill in. It was Mardi Gras or something like that. Your sound man. I don't remember how it happened, but I wound up picking up a show at Storyville. Remember Storyville? Before it was, Jimmy Buffett's place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she came. She was so excited that night. She couldn't believe I had a gig with you guys. And
That's
she was
fun.
just dancing, and she's like, at the end of the thing, she was just blown away. She's like, her energy, she's like, did you feel it? Do you like it? And like, you're right, honey.
I saw some footage from the old days with Steve Walters and
And
Tipitine.
Walter's right.
Yeah, I put it on my page. I liked it so much. Like, the energy was just
Unbelievable.
it's great time.
And you look at Walters. Walters is coming from like mod punk rock. That's what I'm saying. Even I shouldn't have not, because there was the three songwriters, but then Walters had such a huge influence on what you guys were.
Plus, being in the Normals and being Steve Walters, we all had such reverence for him. Such respect for his place in New Orleans rock.
I do remember that.
And to him, to us, to me, Griff and Fred, Steve gave us the real legitimacy to be a great rock band.
Right.
Because we knew that he was a great bass player from a great rock band.
Interesting. So he helped you guys with your confidence. I believe. Yeah.
It was important to us to have him. I mean, we begged him.
I remember that. Yeah. Because then you have like you had somebody else. I don't want to name names, but the guy that was playing with you before is a great bass player as well. But
he left us to go back to, it was Paul Clement.
Yes.
He left us. He still plays with Woodenhead.
Right.
And he left us to get his degree in music therapy because he had fallen in love and was going to have a family.
Right.
And he's been married all these years, and his daughter Grace is beautiful and a writer, and he's happy with the choice he made.
Yes, and he would have been fine in Cowboy Mouth in that early stage, but
not meant for a long-lasting bass player.
Right.
We were the Spinal Tap of bass players. We had Steve for 7 years. We had or 4 years. We had Rob for 7 years. We had Mary for 2.5 years. Sonia for 3 years. And then Mary and Sonia platooned for a year and a half or two. And then I think they had another female bass player, and then Cassandra Falconer, and then Bruiser might be the last one. I think I've covered all like 9 bass players they've had, but it's an ill-fated position in the band.
I was just thinking about when you guys were getting Mary Lasang. I actually had I'd been working with Mary and she had a band with Ruby Rindrag and something else, and I'd been doing some demos. And anyway, I think it was right around the time when Rob was leaving, and y'all were looking and for new bass players. And I'd called Fred, and I was like, "You really should give Mary a shot." And at first, he was like, the first thought was, "Mary, really? I mean, Cowboy Mouth." He didn't see how it would work, or whatever like that. And I'm like,
No, same with me. Like I went to go see her. Maybe at your insistence, I went to go see her at Carrollton Station. What was the band? Isaac's Guns or Dingo 8 by then?
they were Dingo 8.
Dingo 8.
Yeah.
And so I walked in, and first of all, Mary Lasang looks incredibly cool on stage.
Yeah.
She's just one of those people that has cool. And so, and then she's got this really like thump and bass bottom. And so I'm so enamored of her look, her stage presence, that I said to myself, go to the back of Carrollton Station where you can't see her and see if you're still feeling that feeling about the bass. And I went all the way back, and I was just like, that's our bass player.
Mm-hmm.
She's got it. So I called Fred, and he had the same reaction. He was like, man, I don't think our fans are going to accept a female on bass.
Right. Well, that was
And I was like, dude, she rocks.
I told him, I said, think of how cool this is that you one of the early bands to adopt this mixed, thing with. I said, besides, you guys play for girls anyway. What the heck are you thinking? I mean,
I was like, would you take somebody who didn't rock just because they were a guy over somebody who just rocks hard like that?
right.
And finally, when he tried her, I mean, once he played with her, she's just great.
Yes.
Now, Sonia didn't even have that benefit. Sonia was a guitar player,
Right.
and Mary's parents had taken very ill, and she was a very good daughter, and she wanted to leave the band immediately to go home. And she said to us, she'd been planning on leaving anyway because her mom and dad were sick, but this happened and she had to go home. And we needed a bass player for a gig in 3 days. And we tried a few. We hadn't found anybody we liked. And she said, try Sonia. She's not a bass player, but she's a great quick learner, and she rocks. So we were up against the wall, and we're not nice. We call Sonia and we go, you can have a gig this weekend if you can learn the entire set. You have 3 days.
Wow.
See it, at the gig.
Wow.
So she gets to the gig, and she freaking rocks the set. And we go to the autograph signing table afterwards. And usually it's Fred that's being mobbed, and Sonia's getting mobbed. And it's me and Fred standing there. And I turned to him and I said, we can teach her how to play bass. We can't teach the fans how to love her.
Right.
They loved her from the first night. And she was a fine bass player from the start who turned into a better bass player. But then Sonia, in the time that I knew her, was a guitar player. She learned how to play bass. She taught herself mandolin, saxophone, and some keyboard.
Right.
She's music.
She's just music. Yes. I think it was a very smart idea for you guys. Obviously, I was pushing for it. By the way, Mary, if for whatever reason you're going to therapy now because of that, I apologize, for being on the road with a band for such a long time. Just being on, it doesn't matter what band it is. Just being on the road with a band can put you in therapy.
No, Mary actually had to become a social worker because of her years on the road with Cowboy Mouth. She learned how to help disturbed people.
Nice.
So she's bringing that to the world.
That's a beautiful thing. Let me catch up on some of...
We're over time, Mikey. We have to stop this nonsense.
What, stop? Do you mean today?
Yeah, we're over time.
Yeah, I know we're over time. But hold on, let me just get everybody out. By the way, Eddie texted me again. He says he's got some record label stories. We'll save it for another time, Eddie. We got more shows coming up. And
we haven't started doing guests yet. We're very close to doing guests, but we haven't gotten there yet.
We're getting close, yes. So let's see here. Kevin, goo to the Eddie's place. Let's see. We can revisit Eddie World. So everybody's having fun with Eddie. You asked for it, Eddie. The best Cowboy Mouth albums were bootlegs. I think I agree with that. The ones that people just captured something live and put out. Jeff quality bootlegs. Yes, Jeff Peters, right? I mean,
Jeff Peters.
Let's talk about Jeff at some point. Great week of shows. Thanks again for doing it, gents. That came from Mark Membrila. And then Robert Eustace says, hey. So hi, Robert. How you doing there? Thanks for joining us today.
All right, Mikey.
Having a lot of fun. And everybody have a nice weekend. Get ready for Mardi Gras next week. Monday we'll be back with you.
For the special Mardi Gras edition.
We'll have Mardi Gras theme. Too bad neither one of us has house floats, right? We should do it at the house float. You know anybody who has house float?
Well, that's another story for another time.
Yeah, maybe we'll get together at your place on that one. Put up some Mardi Gras things and.
It's warm enough, Mikey.
Yeah, it's actually it's gonna be freezing on Monday.
Looking at a cold Mardi Gras. We're looking at the kind of Mardi Gras where you go, I'm so glad there's not a Mardi Gras this year.
Right, because it's gonna be a ridiculously cold.
if there's ever had to skip one, you know, 3 starts to the morning is a good one to skip.
You know, man, I guess I got so many memories of a Lundy. Yeah, Lundy Gras is definitely going to be a fun looking back thing for me because I mean, so many great memories of Lundy Gras past.
Save it for Lundy Gras,
Yes, we'll
buddy.
save it for Lundy Gras. All right, people, thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to play our outro song. We'll see you again on Monday. We'll be back again next week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Guests coming soon.
Well, I used to keep my money in a cookie jar. It was shaped like a cat, it was a present from my brother. I read a lot of books, but I couldn't see between the lines. I'll have another cup of coffee if you don't mind.